Windows 7, but not on XP, I think. And so IE 10 is no longer beta, but it has a few new features, these web worker things. I'm not quite sure how useful they are. But this is, again, Internet Explorer is where you can really see Microsoft be way behind other companies. And if you go to web developers conferences, they will often talk about how we have all this great stuff, and they'll run in the advanced browsers, which means everything except IE. And in particular, JavaScript, for example. The JavaScript renderer in Internet Explorer has been terrible for generations, and Google got fed up with this, and they improved it so it ran 100 times faster in Chrome. Because it was just not even trying to optimize the code, and so now they made it better. So what happens is after Firefox and Chrome bring something out, maybe 2 or 3 years later, IE has an imitation of it. Anyway, so IE is the same, of course, in every edition. Microsoft did add a Compatibility View, which attempts to render a page the way Internet Explorer 7 did. This is because Microsoft used to be very bad about obeying standards. And Internet Explorer in the earlier versions, like 6 and before, really did not obey the rules at all. The W3C has the rules and of what HTML and what web pages are supposed to be, and Microsoft just did whatever they wanted, pretty much. So you had to make a website, and then you had to redesign it to make it look good in IE. And now modern versions of IE actually obey the standards. Like many other things in Microsoft, around 2003 they reformed and they decided to stop doing so many stupid things and turn around and be more compliant with standards. And now they're really quite compliant with a lot of standards. But now you might have web pages that were designed only for Internet Explorer. That's another thing. That's I say, we're just talking to somebody during the break about why they're buying Nokia, because they have to get on cell phones. It probably isn't obvious anymore. But 10 years ago, Microsoft just owned computers. Desktops were like 98% Microsoft. 95% of everybody was using Internet Explorer. So people would write websites for Internet Explorer and nothing else. There was nothing else even worth talking about. And that's over. Microsoft is now just a small competitor of many others in many ways. And the only thing they really own is this corporate desktop, a machine on a desk at work. They don't own laptops anymore. Those are mostly Macs and mostly phones now viewing web pages. So they're drifting away. But the reason this Compatibility View is there is because there was a time when you would write web pages only for Internet Explorer and forget everything else. So that's all you needed to do back when it was like 95% of the market. Anyway, they got the ability to put a caret on the screen and drag it along to copy the text. I don't know why they're excited by this, but anyway.
Is that supposed to be an accessibility feature?
I don't know. It lets you highlight things so you can go to Internet Accelerators or something, but I wasn't even aware you couldn't do that. I guess I'm used to using Firefox and Chrome so long where you can do that. Copy text off the page, I thought I could always do that. Anyway, now you can reopen closed tabs. Shift-Control-T usually works on any browser. That's very important for tab browsing. And another thing after Firefox had it, Microsoft added it. RSS feeds, how many people use RSS feeds? That's what I thought. RSS feeds are up there with like Gopher and Usenet. They're pretty much over. Anyway, it's a way to push things to you automatically. Microsoft has spent a lot of time designing things for this kind of technology, even though it didn't turn out to be much use. They went so far as to make something called Sideshow in Vista, where it had the ability to have an extra window, and they thought people would make laptops with an extra display on top like a cell phone, so even when your laptop is closed and turned off, your instant messages will pop up on that thing. I know my iPad does that. Even when it's asleep, it'll wake up to tell me I got an email. But anyway, it didn't really go anywhere. But Microsoft is into this automatically updated feeds. You can subscribe to a feed, and then information will be pushed to your machine all the time, and it'll always have updated information, like a news feed or a stock market feed. This, again, dates from a really long time ago when people didn't have good internet connections, and they weren't always connected to the internet. So having a feed meant it would update every time you did connect. Anyway, Web Slices is Microsoft's attempt to imitate RSS feeds. This, I think, has gone the way of the dodo bird. I mean, Microsoft invented it, but nobody else went along. So if you go to Microsoft pages, there are ways to subscribe to part of the MSN page if you're using Internet Explorer.
Is it easy to show us an example of that? Because
I doubt very much.
No, okay. I've never used it.
No,
yeah.
it's like a lot of things like Silverlight. Microsoft invents this stuff, walking into a field that's already owned by somebody else, they push it real hard, and then it goes away. I wouldn't be surprised if it's totally gone. Here's the Microsoft feed. If I go to entertainment, that would be a logical place for it, and I don't see any of these green things available. even at MSN.com. I don't even know if Microsoft uses it anymore. At one time I was able to see it when I made this slide. At MSN.com had these things. You could hover over this and it would show you a web slice option. Well, I'm not even seeing it anymore. I think they might have even just given up. They've certainly given up on Silverlight. And Silverlight was their alternative to Flash. And it's not even supported anymore or
really?
something. Yeah.
Oh.
They took it out of some, they took off, it doesn't run on their phone. I think that was it.
Because I'm finding applications that need it, but I don't know if they're,
There are still a few
Yeah.
Microsoft applications that need Silverlight. But it certainly didn't take off. What happened instead is Flash died.
but
And its
it's,
imitations also die. But there's still a few exceptions.
and also I use Safari on a Mac at home and that wants Silverlight for some reason.
Safari on Silverlight?
Yeah, and I don't have Windows installed
Wow.
on my Mac
That's
at all.
really weird. It must be the website you're going to. It's strange.
Yeah.
I've never had Safari ask for Silverlight.
I thought it was Netflix, or Hulu or something
Maybe
like
Netflix
that.
actually uses Silverlight. Well, I sure hope not. Anyway, you can change the search engines. By default, it will search for Bing. Microsoft announced, like when they were, about 3 years ago, they announced in 9 months we're going to have a search engine better than Google. And they still pretend Bing is better than Google. It's not, but they pretend it is. And anyway, what they do is they bribe people to use Bing. They pay companies to make Bing their default search engine. Yeah.
It's almost little commercials about Bing versus Google.
Yeah.
How they're going into your throats. Like Bing is more faster than Google.
Mhm.
Have you seen that commercial?
No, I don't have a TV. I highly recommend it. But anyway, that was just like adding 10 years to my life. Now I have all this time I would have watched TV. I get to do something. Anyway, but
Probably on YouTube.
yeah, no. Anyway, that's Bing. So Bing is out there. Some people like it, but Microsoft will push it on you. You can find other providers. What's kind of hilarious, I wonder if they actually fixed this. So if I search in IE, it searches with Bing. Now I can search for more providers somewhere.
Internet options.
Good. You know where it is?
It should say
Content, maybe?
something.
You know where? Programs, maybe. You see it? I don't see it. Let's see. Might be somewhere here. Okay. Let's see if I have any clue on my slide where it is. It used to just be right there when there was a bar there. But this version of IE.
Sorry, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for how to change the search providers.
Okay, so yeah, Internet Options, General tab, and go to search. It's not there?
It's not there.
Go to menu add-on.
They made it. You saw
It's
something?
there on the later versions.
If you go back to the tool icon,
Yeah.
she's saying go to manage add-on,
Add-ons are completely different.
but it's there.
It's there?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. No, it isn't.
Search
Search
provider.
Where?
On my
Okay, good. All right. So this is a good one. All right. I just want, there's not even another choice. That's pretty,
on my IE8,
yeah. don't know which
it's
one.
on the General tab of Internet
This
Options.
is IE10. So maybe, yeah.
Oh,
Anyway, it used to be there.
that's why.
But what I thought I was going to show you, but I think this even more makes the point, the original one would open a page with 100 search engines you've never heard of, and Google is like on page 2. And this one, like, I don't see how you could even make this thing search in Google if you wanted to. The only option in the world is Bing. So they're really trying to get you to use Bing. And this
Oh,
is the
I
kind of
see.
stuff
Yeah.
that got them sued. This is exactly what the lawsuit was about. Making you think that the only search engine in the world is Bing, making you think the only browser in the world is IE, the only email is Outlook Express. So this is a little bit of the old Microsoft leaking through. But they've reformed a lot. I mean, the first version of Microsoft's geographic mapping product, there's Google Earth and there's a Microsoft equivalent, I forget the name of it. And when you went to Apple's headquarters, it was just a vacant lot. They bulldozed it out in their map. Because there was a Microsoft dictum from 15 years ago that no other company name shall ever be mentioned in any Microsoft document. We are everything. You'll never mention another product or another company name anywhere. So they went that far as to like rub off their headquarters off the map. Anyway, and somebody had a comment out there?
And when you start IE10, I think
Yeah.
when you start any IE, but I think with IE10 too, when you first set it up, it will give you the options
Yeah, to choose a search provider.
other providers and
Yeah.
suggestions from other providers, but you have to not click through it,
That's right.
which most people do.
Yeah, they do give you some chance. Anyway, then there are accelerators. You can highlight something and then automatically feed it to a Microsoft product, which might be sort of nice, automatically put it in your calendar or something, but you have to be using the Microsoft Windows Live products here, which is not that popular, but it's something you might do, especially at a company. In corporations is where this all makes sense. You should use the Microsoft version of everything, and then it will install right and be controlled with Active Directory settings and such. Yeah?
You can actually kill Windows Live.
Windows Live still exists.
No, they killed it, didn't they?
No, they just changed it. Here, it's a, let's take a look. It's in your homework. If they killed it, it'll affect this class, so let me pause and investigate this statement. It was there a while. Windows Live Essentials, I thought it was still there. They change it all the time. Now they took live.com and changed it to outlook.com. That might be what you're thinking. But here's Windows Live Essentials. And this is the same stuff. Yeah, here it is. It still exists. It's not included by default. But it's got, they do seem to have, yeah, now it contains SkyDrive, Writer, Mail, and Family Safety. It used to have about 8 things. They've eliminated some of them. But see, this is because one of the many things at Microsoft that got so inefficient it really bothered them is that they'd have multiple teams doing similar products that compete with each other. And they had web-based mail competing with their built-in mail client, for example. So they got rid of the built-in mail client, now it's just this.
They're calling
yeah.
it Windows Essentials now,
Yeah, not
as
Live
opposed to
Essentials.
Live Essentials.
Okay. Well, this one's still called, yeah, Windows Essentials, right. They got, but it's still around. They just changed the name. But it certainly is not as big a deal as it used to be. Anyway, autocomplete is a big issue. A lot of people let the browser remember their passwords. Now this has some obvious security problems. The most obvious one is if you walk away from your machine, the next person that goes there can just totally get in your account. Another thing that is perhaps not as obvious is that means it's in the program somewhere and malware can steal it from there. And in the early versions, this was stored in a weakly protected file. It was easy to steal. And every version of Internet Explorer, Microsoft tries harder to encrypt it and hide it until it's getting really pretty strong. Yeah?
Doesn't Mac also have that feature?
Everything
has
has
the keychain?
Yes, Mac has it in the operating system and also in every browser. Everybody has a problem with passwords, and there are many password managing products. Putting it in your browser is probably the most dangerous but most convenient way to store your passwords. Yeah?
For the people that do use the autocomplete for their passwords and
Yeah.
usernames, is there a way once, if they click it to automatically remember, is there a way to undo that so the computer, so the doesn't remember the password or the username once you've already
It's a good question. I know how to do it in Chrome and
How about
Firefox.
Internet Explorer?
I think there is. There's a credential manager. I start with credential manager in Control Panel, but the answer to everything is old school. In fact, let me check, because hunting through Microsoft help menus is much less productive than Google. Let me see, I see if I can find that answer in 10 seconds. I bet I can. Remove stored passwords, Internet Explorer. There. How to remove a saved password from a browser. Here's Boston University and Wisconsin University telling us how to do it. That sounds pretty good. Okay, there it is, delete browsing history. And here you can delete passwords. You can get them all. Now, if you wanted to get just one, though, I don't know if you can do that. You can totally do that in Chrome, so you can get just that one. But I don't know if you can delete just one. But you can certainly delete them all, and that's one way to handle it. Anyway, you can choose what to remember. This is, I think, IE8 storage. It's kind of cute. It's stored in the registry, in HT Current User Software, Microsoft Internet Explorer, IntelliForms, Storage 2, and then it encrypts the password with, I think, AES 128, and I think it actually sticks the password in the name of the key, not the data, I forget. It's kind of screwy, but they did go to a lot of work to make it hard to steal the passwords. But the point is, if you really want to steal passwords this way, there's a lot of tricks. The most obvious one is cross-site scripting. If you make a website that tricks your browser into thinking that you're at Google when you're not, it will just automatically log into Google, and then, or you may have another tab already logged into Google, and that's a common trick. There are attacks that will use the fact that you're probably already logged in. Anyway, but to steal the passwords itself, that's something usually is malware, stealing them all at once. And there are malwares doing that, various versions of IE, stealing the passwords out of it. So, if you want to store your passwords, safer to use a third-party product, like RoboForm or something.
What about that LastPass?
Some people like LastPass. It killed my Ubuntu Linux one time and I got mad at it, but nothing's perfect. Some people like it. And there's someone online. Any kind of password manager is a good idea because then you can actually start using a different password for every site. That's really important because the sites get breached all the time. And once you get behind the hood at web services, you find out how sleazy they are. You realize you really don't want to give Yahoo the same password you're using for other things because they're just dropping it on the floor and sticking it in plain text files, losing it like crazy behind the scenes there. All right, so security and privacy is a big, big issue on the internet, and Internet Explorer is, Microsoft, this is the big thing. The Trustworthy Computing Memo in 2002 or 2003, Microsoft got so humiliated by their terrible security that they made a huge policy decision to reverse their entire attitude about security. Until 2002, they thought security did not matter. All that matters is to make it easy to use. There aren't very many hackers. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen is they can't figure out how to do it, so make everything automatic and easy to use. That was where they were focused. And it finally got so out of hand that you couldn't use your machine at all because it was all full of malware, so they turned the whole ship around, and now there's a lot of protection. Windows is the most defended operating system you can have, and Internet Explorer is probably the most defended browser you can have. And there is no longer any reason not to use Internet Explorer as far as security is concerned. All browsers are the same. The way browsers get hacked is through the third-party plugins like Java and Flash and PDF Reader, and those are the same no matter what browser you use. So current statistics show that your chance of getting infected or hacked is exactly the same. Doesn't matter what kind of browser you use anymore. 3 or 4 years ago, they'd say don't use IE, but it doesn't matter anymore from the standpoint of security. One of the things IE has is protected mode, and you should understand that because that's got to do with user account control and the two accounts here. What protected mode does is if you go to a website that tries to install software on your machine, which is, among other things, ActiveX, runs processes on your machine, and if it tries to install something in the root of C or in the registry, tries to change a key there, the browser wants to do that, but you don't want it to really permanently change your operating system, so it virtualizes those changes. Virtualization is just a fancy word for lying. There's a redirector process, and when the browser tries to write a value to a certain location, the redirector looks at it and says, oh, I will lie to the browser and say, yes, I put that in the root of C, but I really put it here, C user SAM app data local low. That's where I store lies. And every time the browser looks for this value, go look in the lie folder and tell them that lie. And when the real operating system wants to look at the real registry, it's not going to see that lie. So this is how the browser can run something that requires changing a privileged part of the drive, and it will work without really changing the privileged part of the drive. It's very much like virtual machines, where it thinks it's in XP and it's running, but it's actually just running in a process on top of Windows 7. So that's cool, and that's what these low folders are for. The low folders contain lies which a low privilege process will be told when it attempted to do something only a high privilege process was allowed to do. And that works pretty well. It does protect you. This other thing is the security zones. This has been around, I think, since Windows 95. This is the basic Internet Explorer security model. And it has some problems, but this is what it is. And it goes like this. Everything near you is local, intranet, and everything else is internet, and these two are empty. That's the Microsoft security model. Now, when you first install it, local intranet, if you're in a domain, local intranet is every machine in your domain. If you're in a work group, local intranet is everything in your subnet by IP address, with similar IP addresses. And everything else is called the internet. This is considered more trusted and more able to run scripts and such if you're connecting to a shared resource. Here, this is less trusted. Now, you can then optionally add certain sites to trusted, like your business partners and your corporate website and such, and then it'll let them run almost every script. And you can put things in restricted sites, which doesn't mean you can't go there, but it means that when you do go there, active scripting won't run. You'll be able to see the page, but it won't be able to run any kind of processes on your machine. And that's the game there. One thing that's, so here's what trusted sites are set up to medium security level. And the easy thing to do is use this slider, where you just choose like medium to medium high. If you want to, you can do a custom level, and there are dozens of settings, one by one, for ActiveX controls and JavaScript and everything else about the browser. It can be very confusing. And so trusted sites are at a lower security, and when you add something to the trusted sites, it has to be HTTPS by default. This is because if I were to add MSN.com to trusted sites, then that means I'm going to trust MSN.com, and I'm going to trust anything that pretends to be MSN.com. because if it's HTTP, there are a dozen hacking tricks that will cause you to go to the wrong site and your browser thinks it's HTTP MSN.com. How do you really know? When telephones first came out, this was a big issue. Someone calls me on the phone, I can't see them, how do I know who I'm talking to? And on the internet, it's even big issue. I send some packets down the wire, some page comes to me, they say it's MSN.com. How do I know if that's really MSN.com or some kind of fake site? And you really don't know unless it's HTTPS. So you can turn this off, but if you do it, you're less secure. Yeah?
For a trusted site, so you can also use your USB drive, right? Like,
What about your USB drive?
like, I have seen some people that use the USB drive and they plug it into the USB board.
Yeah.
And they download like a special site that they think that is trusted.
Download.
And they sell the internet using the USB drive.
Oh yeah, they run the browser on the USB drive. Yeah, that's right. That was what View 3's report. You have portable software and you can get portable versions of Firefox where you run on the USB, and that way you're not leaving cookies behind on the main machine. That's the idea. It's intended to make you more secure. It'd be interesting to see somebody test that. But yeah, that is another common trick. That's to protect your privacy. This is to protect your machine from getting infected by malware, but also to prevent it from getting your password stolen by malware and such. That's the idea here. And the restricted sites, you can put anything here that you don't like, and then it will be no scripting on those pages. So realistically these days, at a corporation, you'd probably get a layer 7 firewall and just block the sites entirely. By a whole category, block all the porn sites, block all the shopping sites, things like that. But if you don't want to do that, you can do it in your browser here, and that will block the scripts on those pages anyway. This, by the way, is probably completely obsolete as a security measure. There was a study about a year ago that analyzed websites and found, you guys might know, what's the most dangerous kind of website to go to? Anybody know? Call out a guess.
Most dangerous?
Porn sites, that's what people used to think. Yeah, what's the most dangerous kind of website to go to?
Religion, church.
What?
Religious.
Religion? These are not the right answer. What else?
Download some,
What's that?
some kind of video download.
Video downloads? It's also not right.
Shopping.
Nope, not shopping. Still haven't heard the right answer.
City college.
Yeah. Torrents. No, torrents. Not even torrents. So torrents aren't normal websites. Torrents are very dangerous, but they're not normal websites. What's the normal website you go to in a browser? The most dangerous website to go to is
Shop.
news. The websites that have current news stories are the most likely to infect you.
Like nowhere.
Yes, if you just Google, if something happens, like an explosion, and you Google it and click on the top hits, that's the most dangerous thing you can do.
Really?
Yes, that's because malware authors have figured this out. They know that people hate they think the porn sites are doing it, and so they don't put the malware on the porn sites. They do is they put up sites and they go to Google Zeitgeist. There's a Google stream you can connect to that will tell you what the biggest search hits are. And they put up pages that have the biggest search in them to get to the top of the rankings, and they put the malware on those. So if you Google whatever's exciting right now and click the top hits, that's the most dangerous thing you can do, a drive-by
So
download.
you should go directly to the news site like the New York Times or
That would be
kind of
better,
thing,
yeah. But anyway, so the point is, this whole restricted sites thing comes from a time, this is like if you have a town, there's a bad part of town, don't go there and you'll be okay. You know, that's not true on the internet anymore. You can't really list the bad sites and feel like you're safe on the others. Anyway, so when you add things to restricted zone, it's the same thing. You can put anything you want, and they don't force this to be secure because who cares? If I'm blocking porn.com, I probably want to block that and anything pretending to be porn.com. I want to block them all, you know, so I don't really care. So you have this slider level to choose between high and medium high, and you can also go into the details here and see many, many little settings, enough to make you very confused. Yeah.
When you say drive-by download, those
Yeah.
are basically stuff that downloads itself, but some browsers you can click it to, and it asks you where you want to save this file, right?
Yeah, it's a file download usually cannot happen without user interaction, although there was a bug in, I think, Safari for a while where you could do that. But drive-by downloads are things that install with no user interaction, and they're not supposed to be possible, but there's a lot of exploits that do it. You go to a page, and something appears, and it goes right on your machine without you clicking yes or anything. That's the problem. That's the most common way to get infected. And they put those on these news sites. Also anywhere else. Yeah. So if you put no script, for example, on Firefox or Chrome, that will protect you a lot. That really defends you pretty well against these things. But it's also extremely difficult to live with. It's like the old Vista user account control. It's always in your way. You have to keep on clicking to approve things. So you have to choose what level of security means most to you. For most people, if you actually want to be secure, you get an iPad. There is no known way to infect an iPad with anything. And same thing's true of the iPhone. They are protected by an entirely different philosophy, which is whitelisting. You are in a controlled garden. You cannot go to a website and download something and put it on your iPad. It won't run. You have to go to the store, and nothing can get in the store without Apple approving it. So you can only do the approved things, and nothing else can run. That works. That is the answer for most people to get rid of your malware. But PCs aren't that bad anymore. All the protections on PCs are being moderately successful, keeping them clean enough so they run these days. Microsoft has Authenticode. This is how they sign software. So it doesn't mean it's clean, but it means somebody signed it, and if it was bad, you'd know who to sue. So in practice, that probably means it's clean. And in the last 2 years, the criminals have begun to steal Authenticode signatures. They stole a few of them. So they're actually signing malware now. There are a few examples of it, but usually malware is not signed. And so if it is signed, you'll see this. This website wants to run this add-on PC Pit Stop utility from PC Pit Stop LLC. Somebody signed it, and here's who they are. And you play with this in the project. You have a signed program, and then you modify it, and you'll see that the signature is not valid anymore. The signature means you know who made it, and it hasn't been altered since it was made. So that's important, and browser settings will often let you run signed software, but not unsigned software. And as I mentioned, Windows 7 64-bit will not let you run unsigned device drivers for the same reason. A signed driver has an integrity check to make sure it hasn't been altered, and also somebody is standing behind it and signing their name on it, and is legally responsible for it. So it's in general probably a better product. That's Microsoft's idea. So when you download files in Internet Explorer, you'll see a couple of boxes popping up warning you about downloading it. We've all gotten kind of used to this. This is many different processes to try to make sure that you know if something's being downloaded through Internet Explorer, because there were so many exploits that would just automatically put junk on your machine without user interaction in the earlier versions. ActiveX is a very dangerous technology, but a very powerful one. Microsoft made it possible for website designers to put code on the website that would run on your machine. And it can be very powerful. There are ActiveX virus scanners that will scan your hard drive for viruses from a website. And so ActiveX can do almost anything on your machine. It's very powerful, but it turned out to be extremely dangerous. As you can imagine, it can delete files, print files, send emails, So after Microsoft got the ActiveX control process running, they didn't have to put a bunch of security turning it off in most cases. And it was quite a boondoggle here. Google did the same thing. They called it Google Native Code, and I never really heard what became of that. I don't know if it's running yet, but supposedly Google has their equivalent of ActiveX to run in the Chrome browser. I haven't heard much of it. I didn't make it to the last couple of Google developers conferences. I probably would have heard about it there. So anyway, ActiveX controls had this weird thing where you would mark your control safe and then it would run. Modern antivirus will check for malware in ActiveX controls. I'm not hearing so many ActiveX attacks these days because I think it's mostly turned off these days. It never did work in anything but Internet Explorer. There was a very brief attempt to port ActiveX to Firefox, but most people said just forget it, we don't want it. And if you go into the custom levels, I mentioned all these little controls, and here's the kind of controls you get. Do you want to allow previously unused ActiveX controls to run without a prompt, or do you want to prompt the user and tell them? Do you want to let scriptlets run? Do you want to have automatic prompts come up? There's dozens of these things, look at scroll bar, whether you want to prompt the user before doing things or not. And when you choose high or medium high with the slider, you're just choosing a preset group of all these little settings. So there are scripts that run on websites in a variety of languages. They run on your machine. They come down from the website with the HTML, and they're used to make the web pages interactive and such. You need them for forms and shopping and so on. You can put hostile scripts in them, and you can disable them. As I say, one thing you can also do is put no script in your Firefox or your Chrome, and then it will block all scripts, and you'll have to approve them one by one, which is really irritating. What they need to do is they need to upgrade NoScript so it's like an antivirus engine, so it has a list of all the good stuff and a list of the bad stuff, and then it automatically lets the good stuff run and only blocks the bad stuff. But they never seem to get that up there. And so just telling you there are 21 scripts on this page, and I now have to approve them one by one until my video plays, gets old pretty fast. But it does make it a lot safer. I'm unaware of any product you can get now that actually blocks hostile scripts automatically without driving you nuts. We need that. We need like NoScript version 2 or something. Anyway, Microsoft has won awards and done tests to prove that they really are the most safe browser from a standpoint of phishing. Microsoft is the leader in this. If you go to a dangerous website, Microsoft will do this. The whole page will turn red. You don't see it at all. It says, this is unsafe, don't go here. Way down in the bottom it says, I really want to go here, do it anyway. You know, this worked. They did studies. If you send people to phishing websites in IE, 95% of them don't go because this scares them away. And at this time, Firefox and Chrome would just pop up a little box saying, the security certificate has a problem or something. And people don't stop because of that. That's like a fly landing on the screen. They swat that away and keep going. This hits them in the face. They say, well, I don't think I really want to go to this site. So that works. This human engineering. And in response, the other browsers imitated Microsoft. And now the other browsers will make a big strong dance like this about it too. This got Microsoft in a little bit of hot water with Windows 8 though. Because the way this works is, in order for this to work, they have to know all the evil websites in the world. So they have a Microsoft server with a constantly updated list of all the evil websites. So every time you go to a website, it sends the URL up to Microsoft to compare to that list. And people sniffed the traffic and found it, and they said, Microsoft is spying on us. They're watching everywhere you go. And they said, well, you could look at it that way. We're blocking the bad stuff. That's how it works. But it does mean that they see every URL you go to, and they could hand it over to the NSA and keep track of who's looking at porn sites at work and turn them in and all that jazz. And they say they're not doing that, but you know, so some people are upset about that, but that is how it works. It sends every URL up to Microsoft where it is determined whether to show you this warning or not. Websites use cookies because HTTP is a stateless protocol. If you go to yahoo.com and somebody else goes to yahoo.com, there's no way to tell who you are except to add extra data to the request, which is a cookie, which is just a long string of text, which was some kind of hopefully encrypted data, which will be recognized by Yahoo telling you who you are. So they're stored in app data roaming Microsoft Windows cookies, a single little text file for every cookie. A proper cookie is just a bunch of random numbers. Take a look here. See the cookies folder. You open it with Start Shell Cookies. Shell Cookies. All right, so there are the cookies. So I have a Cisco cookie on this machine from years ago. Let's see what Cisco puts in a cookie. That's a proper cookie, I guess. This part's readable. You want something, you're not supposed to put something in here like your credit card number or your password or anything, because it's just a plain text file. Most of them are sent in plain text over the internet. If you want a good time, go read the New York Times and look at the cookies. Every single time you go to the New York Times magazine, it sends to New York Times a list of all the articles you've read this month. And you can read them. You read the headlines to decide whether you've seen your limit this month or not yet. I thought that was kind of rude. But anyway, those are cookies. They're intrinsically harmless. They're just plain text files. They can't run code on your machine. They are a small privacy risk in that they can be used to send some data about you back to a company, and that's what Google does. Something called DoubleClick invented this third-party cookie concept where you go to msn.com. So I'm the first party. I'm going to MSN. They're the second party. And somebody I never heard of called DoubleClick has put an image on that page I can't see. A 1x1 pixel, a transparent GIF, and because there's an image, my browser will do a request to the DoubleClick servers to fetch that image, and they will use that to put a cookie on my machine so that they make a record of what page I was at. And every page you go to has a DoubleClick cookie on it, so DoubleClick knows everything you do. And Google bought DoubleClick and magnified this to the nth degree, to where there was a recent news or a story showing 200 tracking objects on your machine. It's amazing how much they're tracking everything you do. And so that's the risk of cookies. It's not that they are malware and running your machine, it's that they make it possible for a third party to easily track everything you do, and that's how Google makes all their money. They keep track of what everybody is doing, and they target ads to show you whatever is based on your interests. It all happens automatically, but it's kind of creepy and scary, but it's why the internet is free. If they didn't do that, they would have to charge you 10 cents for every Gmail or something. They've got to make money somewhere, and that's how they're making it. Anyway, so this is a big issue of privacy. And Microsoft is using this to try to punch Google. Microsoft is very, very, very proud of trumpeting about privacy. There's some ads about the Gmail man reading your mail before delivering it, because it totally does. Microsoft does not sell ads, so they don't need to do this. So Microsoft is trying to get privacy legislation passed to outlaw Google's business model, and they tried to put it in IE10. In IE10, the protocol of HTTP has the ability to put like a do not track code in your HTTP request. You can say, I want to see your website, but don't track me. Most people don't know about it. You can't figure out how to turn it on. And Microsoft put it on by default in Internet Explorer 10. And Google retaliated by saying, we are going to ignore it. Even if you say do not track, we're going to track you anyway, because the user didn't really choose that. And yeah,
How well is that, not track, option? How well does it work?
I don't think it works at all. I think also Apache decided to ignore it by default. Over exactly this issue. See, they say that should only work if people make a conscious choice to do it. That's what Google says. Microsoft says it should be that way unless you consciously choose to let people track you, because that would kill Google and make Microsoft on top again. And so right now, this is currently hotly debated. It's one of the many digital rights and privacy issues that's a big issue in Washington, and a decision will change the world. I mean, this court decision could kill Google at a stroke. If they decide it's illegal to track users, then Google can just turn them all off and walk out. There's no other way to be done.
Is that what they're talking about, making the internet encrypted? So,
No, that's another issue. Encrypting the internet would not stop them from tracking you, because you actually connect to their server. But there are privacy issues, and Microsoft would really like to outlaw invading your privacy this way, and that would get rid of Google. But so far, the internet remains free because of all these targeted ads.
Isn't that on the, that agreement though that you sign off on all the time when you sign up for an account?
Yes, yes. When you sign up for an account, you're agreeing to various things, but most people don't realize they're agreeing to have everything you do on the internet tracked and kept in a database forever. But that's certainly, when you use Gmail, you are. But even if you don't use Gmail or any Google services, they're still tracking everything you do through DoubleClick. And every page has a DoubleClick ad on it, practically. And if it doesn't have that, it has a Google, there's a Google page optimization service that everybody's using because it's awesome. I forget the name of it. Google Analytics. Google Analytics is awesome. If you're not using it, you got it. What Google Analytics does is you have a website, and your website has like your logo and then the buy button and then news and the blog or whatever, and you have some reason for that website to be up there. If you're a business, there's some goal, like there's a buy button, and you want them to click the buy button. So you break your site into like 10 chunks, and you let them rearrange it. Put this on top, put that on top, and what Google Analytics will do is it will randomly change the way your site is structured and keep track of how many people click the buy button, and it will rearrange your site to maximize the number of people that click the buy button, and this can increase your successful throughput by like 20% for free.
wow.
This can get you more money than paying for an ad campaign, and it's free. And you do it by putting some code on your page that sends information to Google about every visitor on your page, and everybody's doing it. City College website has that, my website has that. You can't say no to Google Analytics. But it does mean that every one of your viewers is also being spied on by Google, and you don't even need to have a Gmail account for this to happen.
I don't understand. How does that work for if you're not a for-profit?
If you're not for profit, then you would still presumably have some goal. Like, for example, if you're trying to inform people about health problems, you'd want them to click on the page to actually read the brochure instead of just going on somewhere else. If you don't have any defined goal, then there's nothing here for you. But most people do have some goal. You put up a page, and the idea is people, like City College has a page, and they would like people to go register as a student. That's an advertising. But if you really have no goal at all, then there's nothing there for you.
But then if you're browsing and you're using NoScript and it offers Google Analytics, you
Yeah.
probably don't want it.
You could say no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
yeah. And if you do say
it's
no,
it's just sort of tracking what you're doing.
yeah,
basically. Yeah.
that's right. But if you're any kind of business, Google Analytics is free money to put in your pocket. Nobody can say no. You got to use it. Anyway, I'm not using it. I just turn it on and play with it because I don't have a goal. But anyway, all right. So you are cookie privacy settings. You control how these cookies are handled, and you can choose different levels. If you block all cookies, you might as well not go to the internet because you can't log into anything. You can't read your email. You can only view websites that just sit there. That's almost useless. Accepting all cookies, probably okay for most purposes. But anyway, you can go to various levels to block these third-party cookies. This is pretty much just a scam. This blocks cookies based on privacy settings, based on PPP. And all this does is it blocks cookies that have that don't have a privacy policy, and a privacy policy is just a code number the company registers somewhere saying what they do with cookies, and it's never verified and no one's ever been punished for breaking it. So if you allow cookies that have a compact privacy policy, that means you only allow cookies from companies that have made a legal promise not to do something nasty with your cookies, but there's no actual enforcement or measurement. Anyway, and this is the kind of stuff that may change. Microsoft is pushing the legislators to pass real tough privacy laws about this cookie stuff. And Microsoft is trying to humiliate them. They invented this thing called in-private filtering, so you can run this mode of your browser, and then it will block, hopefully, most of these cookies, although Google has many, many complicated kinds of cookies, like flash cookies and other ones that will sneak past it. And Microsoft even has this, to let you see who's been spying on me. You can go to let me choose which providers access my information. It will show you who's been spying on you. Microsoft loves this because the answer is always Google. Because Microsoft doesn't spy on you because they don't care. Microsoft makes money the old-fashioned way. They sell you stuff. Give you a box with a disk in it, and you give them money. Google makes money by invading your privacy and targeting ads, and Microsoft really, really wants you to know that and to be angry about it. Anyway, all right, so you can clean your personal information here. We already looked at that before. That's how you get rid of your stored passwords and such. And there's also in private browsing, which is what you do if you want to do something without leaving traces on that machine. For example, if you are at work and you're going to do something personal that is not, that you shouldn't be doing at work or that you don't want your boss to know about, you could try using this in private browsing. It won't work at a corporation because they'll watch the web traffic. One of the things, I haven't heard this much lately, I used to have students ask me, I'm at work, and I don't want my boss to know I hate my job, but I'm applying to other jobs, and I'm going to check my personal Gmail at work to see if I can get another job yet. I said, this is not wise, because any proper layer 7 devices can totally pick that up. And big corporations can even open the HTTPS and see what's inside there, and the US government can. So, but, you know, this is Microsoft's attempt to make this easier. If you go in here, it's not going to store any cookies or anything you go here won't all appear in the internet history. So, you know, if you don't want your kids at home to see the website you went to, this might stop them from seeing it. I don't think it's going to stop a real proper security professional like a forensic analyst, but it will stop some of the trails of what you're doing. So I got a few eye clickers. That's all for today. So, which IE feature shows pages the way an old version of IE did? So quit at 30. That is, of course, Compatibility View. All right, which one of these lets you highlight an address and then map it right away with Google Maps, whatever it's called, or Microsoft Maps, I forget what they call it. Microsoft World or something. Quit at 30. Those are accelerators that you highlight text and then immediately do what that text would do. Like put a phone number in your address book, you know, put a date in your calendar, put an address in your map. All right. All right. What does that button do? That button that looks like a piece of paper torn in half. There. Now it's listening. Quit at 30. All right, so that's Compatibility View again. And it appears to be gone in IE10, huh? The button's gone anyway. I wonder if they still have Compatibility View anywhere. It might just be
Try it
gone.
on a different site.
What's that?
Try it on a different site.
It's around here?
No, like that's a different site. It might even have it.
But this is the IE, isn't it? This is IE, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's right. Good.
It's IE10. That's right.
Try browsing to a different website.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's go to the video thread. These are Bing videos.
Maybe
that's not
maybe it
Microsoft.
likes Bing. Yeah.
Something that's
Something
not
that's
Microsoft.
old.
Wikipedia?
Go to
Wikipedia is as old as they come.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, that's right.
There it is.
But there's still
In the search bar, in the address bar.
URL bar.
It's great. Yeah, in the URL.
Oh, it
the
is. I
address
think
bar.
it's still there. Good. Compatibility View. Thank you. Okay.
You're
they're
going
still
to
around.
Microsoft stuff.
I'm
so
glad.
they don't need compatibility.
I don't know if you can tell, but I never use IE. But that's an old habit. It used to be important not to use IE. Now it really doesn't matter. Anyway, so, all right. So which tool will show you that list, telling you who's been spying on you? filter, don't remember, I'm gonna click back. I'm gonna quit 30. All right, let's see what you people say. In private filtering, I imagine that's right, let me just click back and make sure. In private browsing is where it doesn't store things. This is in private filtering, yeah. You click this button and then you see that list, okay. Hard to tell the difference between those two names. All right, and which one of these will automatically load content into your browser without you doing anything? All right, and that's RSS feeds
Isn't it
RSS feeds
and
web
web
slices.
slices?
So therefore, that's right. Okay, RSS feeds and web slices, which are Microsoft's Imitation, both do this. They're push processes that push content out to you. There used to be a big deal here distinguishing push processes and pull processes where you have to ask for stuff. But now many things have automatic stuff coming into like email and updates and such. This, by the way, is why Firefox and Chrome remedy, they automatically update in the background without you doing anything. All right, let's see who got the most right, and then I'll go up to the lab. I gotta turn this